Hey there, everybody. My name is Ryan Henry, and I'm bringing you this presentation on the integrated curriculum model. I hope you enjoyed my little ditty that I just whipped up there for this presentation. But I love writing music. I love teaching kids how to engage with music and to produce their own music. And I think a lot of these strategies that I've learned about in this curriculum model will actually really help me do that in my music classroom. So to begin, I'd like to continue here. I wanted to share a little information about the developer, one of the key developers with the integrated curriculum model. Her name was Joyce Van Tassel-Basca, which we've read a lot of her literature. And one of the stories that I found that I thought was really cool was that she was absolutely not afraid to try new things. She, as a high school teacher who had absolutely no basketball experience, decided to coach the girls' basketball team because without someone stepping up, they weren't going to have a team. So she thought it wasn't fair that the girls couldn't have a team just because they had no coach. So talk about somebody who's a pioneer. She jumped in there, and she ended up learning how to do this and how to play basketball and how to lead the girls. And within 2 years, they went and were city champions, which I thought was pretty awesome. So it's that same tenacity and growth mindset that she had that went on to develop this curriculum model. So Joyce, she also developed a graduate program and a research center for the gifted education at the College of William and Mary in Virginia, which is a key place for research for gifted education. She also is known for starting the Center of Talent Development at Northwestern University. She has been the state director for gifted programs in Illinois, and she's also been a coordinator for the Toledo, Ohio public school system, which I thought was pretty awesome. Joyce has also worked, this is pretty extensive, as a consultant for gifted education in all 50 states, including some very, very important national groups. In her extensive research in the curriculum effectiveness, she also discovered that gifted students can grow dramatically in subjects that are based on higher order critical thinking, language arts. And so there was a huge positive result when they found that students who were presented with a combination of accelerated curriculum that is also complex and allowed for depth was presented to them. So students had that combination of curriculum that was accelerated, but also complex with lots of depth, were better off as far as their long-term learning. Her integrated curriculum model that she had been working on for years was thoroughly supported by the research findings in regards to the different combination of curriculum styles, the acceleration, and then also the depth. So I want to give you a little bit more detail about the integrated curriculum model. Here's a little visual for you. So the integrated curriculum model basically is a combination of 3 dimensions. And it kind of hinges on this marriage of 3 dimensions. And the dimensions, as you can see, are concepts, issues, themes, and themes. And that basically, what I love about that is that it really takes students into the content and the facts and the information, which is rich and engaging, but it takes them through the lens of looking at things conceptually so that they can extract and kind of discover these concepts and then start to apply these concepts and see these concepts to different disciplines. So it's interdisciplinary, which, as we know from our article that we read on concept-based learning, that was really significant because students can start to create generalizations as they notice these consistencies. So then we've got advanced content, and that is really discipline focused, and it's also accelerated. So we're going at a faster pace than typical. Then the process product involves higher order thinking and depth that is encouraged through problem-based learning, research, inquiry skills, and the goal there is to produce or to experience a process that is new and very relative to a discipline. Now, here is a little view of some specific concepts that you might find within this model. And I don't have to necessarily read them all to you, but you can see change, systems, patterns, cause, and effect. And then you see that the advanced content is in-depth. It has a lot of advanced reading from primary sources, and it focuses on advanced skills. And then the types of processes or products that you might see are elements of research, reasoning, problem-based learning, and also inquiry skills. So those are kind of the end goals that students may be interacting with or participating with. All right, so let's move on to the rationale. So after doing lots of reading, these are kind of where I personally found a very strong rationale for this model. The biggest one was that I think the fact that it combines 3 successful approaches for gifted students, which would be the advanced content, the overarching concepts / issues and themes, and then the process product. Those 3 things have been researched to show great increase in student learning. And so the fact that it kind of feeds on all 3 of those things is a huge support for why this curriculum works. Not only that, but there's been an extensive research bed of support that shows that teachers who have used this, especially in science, language arts, social studies, and mathematics, there is a huge impact in learning for the better. And there's been a lot of accountability over the years through research to make sure that these strategies are actually doing something. The specific research shows that significant growth gains in literary analysis and interpretation, persuasive writing, and linguistic competency in language arts have been demonstrated for experimental gifted classes using the developed curricular units in comparison to gifted groups not using them. So I thought that was pretty significant. Research has also shown, as we know, that concept-based learning impacts long-term learning greater than just looking at the facts and the rules. One of the things I loved is that it provides an opportunity for all learners to grow in the best way. The strategies that are used in the model are not just for gifted students, but they're strategies that teachers can use for all of their students. It can reach a wider band than just the gifted students. So that was a plus. Also, the presence of embedded differentiation in the curriculum allows teachers to better sustain high quality instructional practices. So the fact that through William and Mary and the Research Center and all of the materials that they're developing, the different core, subject materials and guides, there's so much support there for how teachers can differentiate within, the given unit or subject area. Lastly, I was going to say the curriculum is designed to match key characteristics of gifted students. So precocity, which is talking about basically how ahead that student is, and a lot of research has shown that students can sometimes, even in mathematics, can be ahead by as much as even 2 years. So how advanced a student is, the complexity, which is their ability to have higher order thinking, abstract thinking, their intensity, which was kind of a new term for me, but talking about the student's emotional response to the presented material. And interesting fact that is, as students are able or have a higher emotional response to something, that drives their engagement and it drives their desire to learn. So that is actually a really important factor and characteristic of gifted students. So the rationale behind this would be that this model really kind of addresses those 3: precocity, complexity, and intensity. All right, so let's move on and talk about differentiation, because differentiation, as it's described in this model, is basically a response, how the teacher responds to the individual student's characteristics of precocity, complexity, and intensity. It's how the teacher, adjusts their, point in the curriculum and what types of things they deliver to the student based on their readiness and based on their ability. Um, Especially to the two characteristics of precocity and complexity. One thing that I liked about this curriculum is that the integrated curriculum is really a total package in a specific area. It's not an add-on, so it provides the needed differentiation within the traditional areas that schools are usually held accountable for. It really works really great for cluster groups, especially subject-based classrooms, or also in gifted schools where differentiated is really needed in all subjects. I also thought that it was really neat that teacher self-assessments are really encouraged when they use this model so that they can measure the effectiveness of their different differentiation strategies, which I think accountability is really, really important. So now, as far as the application goes, because I am not a teacher of gifted education necessarily directly, but I teach music, K through 5 music. And so I mean, we have tons of different overarching concepts that are already embedded in our curriculum. And so I just chose one for this example and just kind of brainstorm some ways that I could take students into the content through the concept and look at the content in many different ways, look at the concept in many different ways, and then have them produce a product. So one thing that I thought we can do is with melody, the concept of melody. Um, melody is a sequence of pitches, right? But it's also a musical theme. So I thought one thing we can do is that we can have students sing a Mozart melody. We can talk about the phrase structure, talk about how the melody is very much like a sentence and how there's commas in it and there's periods in it. And it should sound like a conversation. We can talk about a specific melody, can put it up like the one that you see on the screen, and talk about the steps, the skips, and the leaps. We could also listen to lots of different commercial tunes and movie tunes and just in general catchy tunes in pop culture and interact with them in different ways, whether it be singing them or playing them or even just talking about the catchy characteristics of them. Then we could switch over to listening to melodies that tell stories, maybe finding their favorite movie themes. So we're kind of really getting a glimpse at melody through a lot of different lenses. I thought maybe I can find an article that would be, age appropriate, or maybe I can retype it to kind of give the content, but a challenging article that would talk about a composer's perspective about the composition process and decision making. So after the student can go into this content, looking through the lens of melody, one of the products I thought is we could really have the students seek to answer the question, what parts of everyday life deserve an accompanying melody, and what would it sound like? So to get students to be thinking about melody in a new way. What if you were to produce a melody for a specific area, and what would you make it sound like? What parts of your life could use a musical cue? Maybe it's when you wake up in the morning. Maybe it's your alarm clock needs more music. Maybe every time you get on the bus, you want to hear a theme song or something like that. But have the students brainstorm the different functions of music and then start to think about if they were to create it, what would it sound like? And that we can go, very, very much in depth with that. The end product would be after they kind of use what we've talked about with melody and how melodies have appeared throughout the content, they can create a composition that has a very specific function that is real to life, and it has a real to life use, I should say, and it puts students in the place of the role of the composer. I really think that in music, the role of being the role of a composer is one of the most synthesizing ways to engage with music. And so I have an example actually of what a product could look like. This is an example from one of my students from last year, from our composition club. And I loved that her title matched the mood of her piece. So I'm going to show you guys this and talk about how we can maybe modify this this a little bit. So this is written by one of my students named Shribiba. And here is how her song goes. I have to say it's called Desolated, and it was written shortly after the lockdown happened in Illinois. So this is happened in this is written in quarantine. So I thought that was a very appropriate title and a very appropriate sounding song. So sad, right? Shribiba did a great job with this, and actually, I had zero direct help. Gave her zero direct help with this specific project. Actually, I just happened to pull this up today to see. I can go into my students' accounts and see what they're writing, and I found this. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing!" And so, one thing I love about this is that she was really trying to match the tone of her piece to the title and for what she was trying to communicate. If I would go back here, um, let's see here. Yeah, if I would go back here, this could be a product for this type of unit where a student composes something to sound like something specific, to communicate a very specific feeling or a specific time. They could write something for a specific person and try to put different characteristics of that person in the melody. We talk a lot about that. So there's a lot of room for this. And in the past, I've kind of approached this, I guess, more factual, like this is a component of a melody, this is a component of a melody. We've done some exploration, but I really think that maybe doing more of a unit focus on melody where we experience melody in a variety, like a ton of different ways, I think that would actually help them develop melodies. Because one thing I noticed in her piece is that it's got a cool sound to it, but I think the melody, the specific characteristic of the main theme, is actually kind of missing. She has a lot of nice harmonic background, but the melody is kind of missing there. So I would have her go through this and go through this these units and maybe help bulk up her understanding of melody. Okay, so let's move on now. I want to close here just showing a couple of resources I thought were helpful. If you go to the William and Mary School of Education website, right here, you can find out more information about the integrated curriculum model, and you can see some of the visuals that I had here. And you also can see some of the subject areas and the materials that they have published for them. So that's one website. And then I thought this was cool. Dr. Joyce has a website, and it goes more in detail about her background and her history in developing well, this one actually doesn't go so much into the history. This one is more about her experience as a leader in the field. So that was just kind of for my own information. If you click here into this What Works, I really appreciated this one right here, because this goes into the research of all the different subject areas and how it has been proven that this model works in these different subject areas. It also kind of shows you some of the titles of the units that appear in the different subject areas. And then it kind of gives an overview, again, another overview of this integrated curriculum model. So you might want to check that one out. I will say as well, oh, this website right here. Oh, this was really helpful. Analysis of gifted education curriculum models. There's another article that you might click on there, and it goes into more of the bigger picture of curriculum models. But if you go down to, I think it's page 124, it has more information about this particular model. I think it is right here. Yes, Van Tassel's integrated curriculum model. Yes, has more information and research. All right, and then the last page, you can browse through some other resources there, but the last page is my bibliography, which I don't need to read to you, but you guys can see that for yourselves. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning into this presentation. I hope you learned something, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody else's presentations.